I want every achievement in the entire Halo series, and unfortunately Halo 2 is still standing in my way. Halo 2 is notorious for its absolutely unforgiving legendary difficulty, and what's the absolute best way to survive legendary? You've got it. Speedrun it and run past almost every enemy in the game. Now, I have previously speedrun Halo 2, but it was all the way back in 2020. I'm now 30 years old, so I've obviously forgotten absolutely everything I did. Join me as I attempt to complete Halo 2's legendary difficulty as fast as my ancient reactions can manage. Starting off on Caro Station, this mission doesn't have any real big tricks. We start by hopping onto the top of the blast door, wait for the enemies to run through, and then we run through behind them. A neat little jump lets us skip the next wave of enemies in the next room, and then we have two hangar sections. These hangar sections introduce you to the combat, so you have loads of grenades on the floor. We make use of the noob combo here to take out the elites easily. Now, the noob combo consists of using an overcharged plasma pistol shot which strips away the enemy armor, and then you can finish them with one shot to the head. We have a few more jump spots in the next rooms which dodge more enemies, and then we get to this room with drones in. Now, if you pre-nade the floor, you can kill the drones as they're flying up, but unfortunately I miss and I have to mop them up with a normal weapon. That was not very successful. A few more short battles follow, and after this we disarm the bomb and the level ends. A nice way to ease into the game. Next up is Outskirts. This map has some of the most well-known skips in the entire game, which enable you to avoid almost all of the combat, including the notorious Sniper Alley. If you know anything about Halo 2, it's that Jackal snipers are your absolute worst enemy. As soon as the level starts, we parkour up onto the roof and proceed to skip everything. We utilise a few grenade jumps during this period in time, using the explosion of a grenade to jump higher. And within about a minute, we've skipped almost the entire level. One wave of enemies gets mopped up and we hop into a ghost and continue driving past everything in sight. I do get some bad RNG here, so a few waves of enemies kill me over and over and over, but we eventually squeeze through the level. That really is it. It only took about 10 minutes to finish. It's not a bad run. That's level 2 done. Outskirts. Metropolis was up next, and this is another level that has a bunch of great skips. The first half of this level is just me driving past enemies and hoping I don't die, a common theme of Halo 2 speedrunning. There was this one section in the tunnel which caused me some issues. There are a bunch of enemies including Jackal snipers, and these boxes and cars make it an absolute nightmare to manoeuvre. A few too many deaths later I managed to squeeze through, and the rest of the driving section is pretty nice and easy. Yo. Once we reach these wraiths, we need to kill the driver and board one of them, using it to take out both the other wraith and all the turrets on the Phantom. With all the enemies dead in this area, we now move into the building and prepare to do the Scarab jump. Oh shit. I struggled quite a lot getting this trick to work. I needed to line it up, but I just couldn't get it right, and it also required 2 frags to attempt. This meant that each time I spawned in, as I had no frags, I had to sacrifice this poor Marine's life just to get some grenades. One grenade is used to hop onto this pylon, whilst the second one is used once we hear a specific audio cue allowing us to jump onto the Scarab. Oh my god. We're meant to head through a building and fight our way onto the Scarab, but this technique allows us to board it early, hide in a spot where we're invincible, and take out the elites to end the mission. There we go, and that should be the level done. It's quite quick, I've learned the 30 minutes of jumping I failed. The Arbiter was up next, and this is the first mission where you play as, you guessed it, the Arbiter. We team kill a few grunts at the start to skip some dialogue, and camo past the first few waves of enemies, hit this button and then hide outside the blast door picking off enemies. Once the room was cleared, I now had to attempt to skip through a few corridors of enemies. Naked Eli, whose speedrun guys I was watching, made this look absolutely effortless, but unfortunately I proceeded to die for about 15 minutes straight. Now this entire mission took me a bit under 25 minutes, so this was very painful to say the least. No piss. No piss. The rest of the level was literally just a few more sections of skipping past enemies, no real tricks, and a very quick level. Cameras we drop through and should be done. There we go. Oof. The Arbiter done. Mission 5 was the Oracle. We team killed more grunts at the start to skip some dialogue before utilising quite a cool spot in the first room. We jump up into this glass section on top of the room, avoiding most of the enemies, and then we use a sentinel beam to clear out the remaining popcorn flood. Next we had a 5-minute unskippable elevator section. The combat was very simple here, but unfortunately there isn't a method to speed it up. The one thing we managed to do at the very end is you can jump off the elevator a bit early once you pass the death barrier. After saving a few precious seconds, we head into a large combat room. Naturally, I spent quite a long time dying again because I am absolutely terrible at video games, but once I got out of this room the level was smooth sailing. In the next section we can activate this lift twice. The first time moves it up, whilst the second time moves it back down. Now if you stand under it before it moves down, it will fling you up into the air. Now whilst it's fun to be catapulted into the air, the best part about this trick is it actually makes you invincible for the rest of the level. As a result, all we had to do was run through the remainder of the level, not worrying about any combat because we couldn't die. Onto Delta Halo, another level that can be made fantastically short due to the amount of skips available. We start by scaling this cliff, which is really easy in the old graphics because you can see all the terrain very simply. We need to walk in a specific few areas here to make sure that we trigger load zones, else you can end up soft locked and the enemies won't spawn, but once we hit these load zones we can skip the rest of the enemies. We then prepare for the ghost launch here, which is a trick which allows us to grenade ourselves along the ravine along with this ghost rather than fighting tons of enemies and activating the bridge. I actually shocked myself here. After killing myself a few times to full damage trying to jump off the cliff to the ghost, once I finally figured out that little issue, I got the jump first time.
Managed that first time. Give me a checkpoint. I have not managed that first time.
Now I was actually ecstatic here, because on the Master Chief Collection, this took me quite a long time. I then spent a ridiculous amount of time in the next area. There's a few sets of enemies you have to dodge to trigger some load zones before driving back out. Now I only realised after doing this there is actually a skip. Once you do the ghost jump you can drive up the cliff to the left and skip everything, but sadly I didn't realise that. Now the first time I finally got past these enemies, I make it all the way up this cliff, but I miss a load zone, drop into the end of the level and nothing happens. So I had to reload the checkpoint and die a bunch more time to the same set of enemies. 5 more minutes of dying to enemies, but this time we actually manage it. We hit the load zone correctly and we finished the level.
Nice. Right, Delta Halo done. Oh god, some of those tricks are painful.
We were now on to Regret, which is arguably one of the 2 truly difficult levels in this game, and this one has a bunch of intricate tricks to try. We ignored the guide we were following for the previous level, so we started this level with neither the grenades or the sniper we needed. Not a great start. Fortunately, our lovely Marine allies once again could supply us with some grenades that we needed, so we resumed the Marine massacre we started earlier. We grenade jump onto this pillar and then use a second one to jump onto the top of this building. We then use our battle rifle to kill the sniper jackals, because we didn't pick up the sniper, and then we do this kind of slide grenade jump to scale this gap. We then do a long jump over to the gondola and proceed to throw 3 grenades into specific places in the air. If you do this correctly, then jump on the ledge and spawn the enemies in, you can stick this elite and the first 3 grenades should clear everything else off. You then have to quickly jump back onto the gondola before it moves. If you do it correctly, the gondola starts moving, all the enemies die, and there's a phantom which carries 2 hunters which will appear and then despawn. First attempt I had no decent weapons and I failed the phantom despawn, but I continued on to try and survive the next section. Unfortunately, due to the weapons I had, I failed and I accepted defeat and restarted the mission. Now it took me quite a long time to get this done the first time, so it was a real shame to lose it and have to restart. On attempt number 2, we once again failed the phantom despawn, but we do manage to fight through after a few deaths and progress a level. We cleared the next room of enemies, grabbing a few rod to blow everything up, and then we grenade the enemies in the lifts. We jump into this lift, which is a bit of a Bioshock-esque experience, and we go underwater. After emerging on the far side, all you need to do is skip through a bunch more enemies and jump onto a second elevator. Once we emerge again, we sneak past some enemies and do this quite tricky jump up to the top. Now I was a bit amazed because this took me a long time on the Xbox, but I managed this jump first time, survived and got onto the final gondola.
Surely not. What's managed that first time? I took ages to do that. Absolutely ages on my Xbox run. Oh my god.
After using a rocket to take out a few banshees, all we had to do was kill the final boss now. Now ironically, the most difficult part of this section was getting to the room itself. The checkpoint puts you outside of the boss room and I kept getting killed by elites when I was trying to get into the building. My first time of surviving and getting inside to the boss, I did die, but on my second attempt we actually managed to get Regret down. This is a bit of an awkward fight. You need to mount him 4 or 5 times, suspect I know, and hit him a bunch of times, but every time you do 4 or 5 hits he drops you on the floor. Now if you've got enemies underneath you, they can hit you and kill you in one shot. Fortunately, we get pretty good RNG and it's not actually a bad fight.
Fuck you. That's a rough level. Jesus Christ.
Unfortunately, the next level is Sacred Icon, which is painfully boring to say the least. We'll quickly speed through it. All you got to do is run through a bunch of rooms which all look pretty much identical before finally arriving outside. We proceed to remove our elite from the turret, blow both the turrets up and let him carry us to victory with our sword. Lord knows we can't use one ourselves.
Whoops.
Next on the chopping block was Quarantine Zone, another level spent almost entirely in a vehicle trying to race past enemies. There are some pretty cool jumps and skips that we do over mountains that we pull off with a little bit of a struggle before finally reaching another gondola. Now this gondola ride is about 5 minutes long, and whilst we can't speed it up, you can actually climb onto the top of it, hide in this spot at the top and the enemies can't shoot us. Once the gondola ride reaches its conclusion, you can jump off to the side and skip a little bit of extra running before finishing the level slightly early. There wasn't much to this level and it is very short.
There you go, it's Quarantine Zone done. What? Oh, I swear to fuck.
With that, we were finally onto Grave Mines. Now, anyone who's played Halo 2 will know that this is, without a doubt, the most notoriously difficult level in the entire game. Now, obviously Bungie wouldn't want to make a level too difficult right from the start.
Kill the demon.
That's me. Okay, maybe not.
Okay, who am I kidding? Of course they do. On the rare chances I survive more than a second, the aim is to clear the first wave of enemies as fast as possible before tucking into this corridor. This allows you to skip the next 2 waves of enemies. You then need to clear a few more waves of enemies before despawning the final 2 waves. After surviving the initial room and getting through a few more corridors, we reach the room leading into the prison. Now, when you descend the lift to the prison, you're tasked with wave upon wave of very difficult combat, but there is actually a way to skip this fight entirely. What you need to do is lure a brute into this lift with you, hit a load zone, then butterfly up. You butterfly by spamming both the melee and jump button while switching weapons at the same time. If you do this whilst targeting an enemy, you lunge up and you can push the enemy and yourself up and float back out of the section. I lucked out and instantly got a brute in the lift with me, but upon loading up a video guide to remind myself how to butterfly, it broke my controller inputs. When I unpaused my game and tried to butterfly, as the controller input wasn't working, my jump wasn't registering, and as a result I fall too far down, get a checkpoint and miss the skip.
Oh, fucking. Button's working wrong.
I decided to reload the level to try again, and I spent about 30 minutes failing the first room. The despawns just weren't working and I was really struggling to survive. You'd think I'd improve with some practice, but clearly not. After reaching the lift room again, I then spent a further half an hour or more trying to tease a brute into sharing the lift with me. An hour and a half in and I'd only done about 4 minutes of the actual level. After finally nailing a prison skip,
Skips.
we have a bunch of short sections with small amounts of combat and a bunch of climbing up railings and running past enemies. A sprinkling of deaths occur in the final room because the only thing I'm at all consistent with when it comes to Halo 2 is being absolutely deleted by enemies. We end up finishing Grave Mine with just over 2 hours on the clock. Now I know if I hadn't reloaded and I'd done things a different way, I could have done that a lot quicker, but it wasn't a very strong attempt. I did not have much fun.
Oh.
We just had 3 levels to go now, and the most painful bits were most certainly behind us. Uprising next, and for us mere mortals, this is absolutely the fastest level in the game. A few minutes of distracting enemies, using our camera and running past them, and we're already nearly at the end of the level. We hop up on this cliff, onto a tree, and then up to the top of the mountain, before skipping almost every difficult part of the level and hitting this trigger to end the level early.
And that's that level done.
On to High Charity, another level where the guide I was watching was only about 4 minutes long, but I proceeded to spend almost 10 minutes dying to the first wave of enemies. After finally admitting defeat and killing the enemies rather than skipping them like my guide did, we got up an elevator, sniped some drones, sprint through a few more rooms ensuring we grabbed the rockets along the way. We then used the rockets to blow up everything in sight in this room before hiding in the corner like a coward. Up another elevator and we're already at the end of the level. We fight this brute that didn't want to get out of our way before somehow dodging about 10 Jackal sniper shots and hitting the trigger to end the level.
I definitely got sniped, so I jumped into that. I felt the vibration of the controller.
Onto the Great Journey now. Now, I'm not entirely sure I agree with the name of this level because I've been absolutely obliterated for about 9 hours, but we are finally at the end of the game. We steal a vehicle off our ally here before killing him, and then we park it up for later use. We then steal a ghost next, head to this door before driving back on ourselves. This despawns the first group of enemies. We then proceed to use the ghost to skip the entire indoor section of this level. A few of the jumps were pretty rough and they took me quite a few attempts, but within about 15 minutes I was back outside attempting to splatter these brutes in a fight which for once was actually unfair for them rather than me. We run back on ourselves here again to despawn the Wraiths and get the Scarab moving before hopping into the Banshee and reuniting with the stolen vehicle from the start of the level. I proceed to use the Spectre to skip almost the entire rest of the level. You can scale this structure and do a few neat jumps which ends up putting you just outside of the final boss room. Once the Scarab shoots to open a door, we drop through this load zone with the vehicle and smuggle it into the boss room with us. Having the Spectre in a boss room with us enables us to duplicate Johnson. When we drive the Spectre, Johnson gets into one of the empty passenger seats. This then tricks the game into thinking he's not in the game and it respawns him. After filling our entire Spectre with Johnsons, yes, quite a questionable sentence, we jump over to the platform the boss is on and blow up the Spectre. Now, rather than having just one Johnson slowly taking down Tartarus' shield, we have 4 of him. I really need to stop saying Johnson. Within about 30 seconds, Tartarus had already died, way before the reinforcement waves of enemies had even spawned, and with that, legendary difficulty was complete. I quickly went back and earned the few achievements I hadn't got during my first playthrough. One was for completing a level without dying. Yes, I'm just as shocked as you are that I didn't get that on my legendary run, along with achievements for killing 7 enemies from behind and from acquiring a scarab gun. Halo 2 is now fully complete, and whilst I nailed pretty much all of the speedrunning tricks I attempted, albeit in way too many attempts, the sum of my recordings was still just over 9 hours long. Now that does include the cutscenes which I couldn't skip, so it wasn't actually terribly long, but I could definitely improve that if I tried it again. Now I did thoroughly enjoy myself, and I hope you guys enjoyed coming along for the ride too. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.